Great. Okay, it's 3:01 on November 5th, 2018, and this is the Architectural Advisory Committee meeting. We ask everyone to silence all cell phones. Planning Director, if we can have roll call.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Member Cassidy?
Present.
Member Dosey? Member Lockyer?
Present.
Member McCoy?
Present.
Member Rotman?
Present.
Vice Chair Jakeway?
Present.
Chair Song?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. May we have the staff report on the posting of the agenda?
Madam Chair, the agenda was posted on Thursday, November the 1st. This meeting has been noticed and posted in accordance with state law.
Thank you. Does the committee have any revisions to the agenda for today? I understand.
Madam Chair, I will be abstaining, recusing myself from the Garnett item.
Right, and Mr. John?
I will be recusing myself from the grocery store item.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so having said that, is there a motion to accept the agenda for today?
I so move.
Okay, thank you. And second by Kenny, speediest second ever. Let's take a vote. Those who are in favor of the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposing? Thank you. Since this is a public meeting, audience members are permitted to comment on any issue that's within this committee's purview. Is anybody here that's not for a case for today? Okay, seeing none, we're going to proceed to our meeting minutes. We have one pending for June 18th.
Madam Chair, we have attempted to take action on these minutes for quite some time, and because of the attendance at that meeting, we've never been able to have a quorum. In reviewing this matter with the city attorney, he has indicated that if we have a positive vote of 3 of the members who were there in attendance, then we can approve these minutes. And so on this item, we will be looking to members Jakeway, Cassidy, and Song for their approval of the minutes. Everyone else will be noted as abstaining from that vote.
Okay, so go back to your memory bank and...
So now we actually have to review the minutes.
Sadly, yes.
Okay, give me 1 second.
I read the minutes online and they look fine to me.
Okay,
I'll move to approve those minutes.
Second?
thank you, Tom.
So we will need a vote of the 3 of you.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Great, and we will note the abstentions of the rest.
So we're going to new business, Hollywood Orange Properties, LLC, representing grocery outlet for a minor architectural application for the exterior repaint. In South Palm Canyon, at this point, we will dismiss Member John. Thank you. Staff report.
Thank you, Chair. This is a request for a minor architectural application for the exterior repaint of an existing retail building and a new parking lot landscaping related to the grocery store outlet within the Central Business District at 350 South Palm Canyon Drive. So the proposed project is to take this building, if you look at the slides in front of you, it currently, or it was formerly a Staples office supply building, which has sat vacant for quite some time. The application will repaint the building to a brown beige color with inlays of a darker brown and red. The red columns are currently existing for each of those inlays, and they will be cleaned and repaired. So material board is being passed around to the committee, and you'll see that there's a red stripe. Let me get to that slide. So the red will be the backer of the sign, which the AAC, that application is not here before you today. So I just want to alert you that you're just looking at the 2 brown colors for the exterior of the building. So they're currently on the side that faces Palm Canyon Drive. There is a glass curtain wall that will remain, and then the main door will be the second from the right inlay, and that will be, right now it is also a curtain wall that will be reduced in size to just have the two slider doors that go into the store. Currently, the site fronts along Palm Canyon with its back to Indian Canyon Drive. There are two entrances to the site off of both Palm and Indian. There is ample parking for the use. Currently, there are 25 mature, tall palm trees that will remain, and other landscaping that will be included will freshen the area with a decomposed granite and desert Palm Springs gold. In your packet, there is a floor plan showing how the interior of the store will operate. I'd like to draw your attention to the rear along Indian Canyon. There is a loading dock that currently is services all the uses within the building, which includes the Rite Aid and the little Mexican restaurant that's there. There is a basement floor, but the basement, it will not be used by this tenant. I want to make that clear, that it's just the first floor that was being used. This is a roof plan showing the mechanical equipment which will be on the roof. As you can see, the top is what faces Indian Canyon. There is a large parapet that is around the building, so the mechanical equipment will not be seen from the street. As I mentioned earlier, these are some photographs of the site. This shows the two curtain walls of glass. There also are these black lanterns that are decorative that will be removed from the site. The parking lot is in good shape. It'll just be a few repairs here and there. And this picture, of course, is the landscaping that just needs some refresh. This is along the Indian Canyon frontage. And once again, this photograph is of the parking lot. So currently there is no lighting within the parking lot, but they will be adding light poles that are maximum height of 25 feet that are shoebox that will focus the light downward. There is a lighting plan that is in the packet, and this photometric plan meets the standards of the outdoor lighting code. So as I mentioned, this project also requires a conditional use permit, and your recommendation will go forward to the Planning Commission for the minor architectural, and the Planning Commission will look at the use or the conditional use within the Central Business District. So there are several issues that staff would like to raise. One is there is no provision for carts. As we all know, grocery stores have grocery carts that go in and out. There's no location, as you can see on the front of this building, where the carts will be stored or located, and staff would like to have the applicant address that. Also, the cart storage, the cart corrals in the parking lot, they're not shown. We'd like to know where they'll be. And also, in this area of downtown, there can be an issue with cart theft. What measures will they be using to prevent the carts from being taken off the site? And one other issue is the containment of trash. There are no dumpsters on the site. It's not specifically stated in the floor plan as to where the trash collection will be. And once again, storage of trash outside may become a problem in the downtown section of the city. So staff has listed our findings for architectural review, and the applicant is here, and that concludes my report, Chair.
Thank you very much, Glenn. Questions for Glenn? Yes, Member Tom.
Glenn, is there a current palm tree standard for both Palm Canyon Drive and Indian Canyon Drive? In other words, a recommended street tree for new or renovated development?
Yes, the Washington Phyllophora is the preferred street tree, not necessarily within the site itself, but as a street tree. And in this application, I don't see them putting a street tree in.
Okay, and that's for both street frontages?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hey,
One quick
any
one.
questions for staff?
Glenn, do we know what year this building was built?
Yes, it was built in 1950.
1950.
It was used as a Safeway, so it's going back to its original use.
Interesting. Okay, I was curious to know if the glass, the glazing up the front on Palm Canyon side was maybe originally all open at that top layer and was somehow reduced for some reason. And I'm gonna guess maybe it might have been since it was a grocery store, but just trying to piece it together.
Right. In looking at this photograph, I don't think this is original.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Member Tom, question.
I remember back in the 60s when it was a Safeway, and it was one of their bowed roof designs, and the front entry was on the side now. So this is almost a complete total redesign and reconstruction.
Nice to have a historian on board. Okay, other questions for staff? And Glenn, the brick was not painted over time, was it?
It doesn't appear to be painted.
Okay, right. Okay, is the applicant present? State your name and address.
Good afternoon. My name is Katie Shard, and I am representing Grocery Outlet tonight. Address 3005 Douglas Boulevard, Roseville, California, 95661. I do have with me today several members of the team. Richard Burrow is the architect. Jacob Glaze is the landscape architect, and we have two Grocery Outlet representatives, Clay McFarland, who's with operations, and Tanaz Hagayeg, who is with construction and architecture. So I think with the team, we can answer any questions you may have about the project. I think the staff report addressed really what is being done with it, which is an exterior painting to really reflect the earth tones that you see a lot of here in Palm Springs, and some minor changes to some of the storefront glass as well, removal of the lights, and there is a planting of a tree. It's not a street tree, I don't think, as you had asked. So, so with that, we are available to answer any specific questions that you may have, unless you'd like me to go ahead and just address some of the things that were brought up previously.
Yeah, could you do that?
Okay, so we'll start with the cart containment. And as correctly noted, the floor plan and the site plan do not note where the carts will be stored. There are several locations, or 2 or 3 locations in the parking lot or directly in front of the store. If you look at your floor plan, immediately to the right of the entrance doors where it says bargain pricing, right up against the storefront, the sidewalk area outside of that is where one cart containment would be located. And then there would be 1 or 2 more in the parking lot. And let me just ask if there's a specific location that's been identified on the site plan.
If you can address them as far as you will take care of it, you know, your team will address it, you know, rather than pointing to us where you're going to put it.
We will take care of it.
Okay.
Yeah, where Grocery Outlet has many locations where they need to work diligently to control the cart containment. And so there's a lot of experience with this operator making sure that the grocery carts are not strewn up and down the street, that they will be contained on the property. Let's see, let me just refer back to the other things. The trash collection, if you look at your floor plan, let me see what this is called right here. Oh, existing elevator, is that what this says here? Right, but behind that. So if you look at your floor plan on the right-hand side, it looks like it's in the, well, it is an exterior location, but it says exterior elevator. And then if you go towards the back of the building, you'll see where the trash enclosure is located. And it is not identified on this plan, but that is where the trash enclosure is located. And you'll see there's 2 dotted lines for the swinging doors for the exterior doors on the trash enclosure itself.
So Katie, that's located right here.
Thank you. Yes, exactly. And I think there was a question also about the loading dock, and I will let Clay or Tanaz give you some more specifics about the operations of the loading dock. And if there's anything else that you'd like me to address before I turn it over to them, I'd be happy to.
Actually, I don't know who your team, so why don't we start with our questions, and then you can determine who can answer them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm going to start with member Tom all the way at the end.
It appears in the elevations that the existing decorative features or lights or whatever will be removed. And is there any proposed replacement or other element proposed for that?
My name is Richard Burrow with the architect. My address is 26585 Baronet in Mission Viejo, California, 92692. And there's nothing that's going to be substituted in place for those fixtures. They're just coming off.
Okay. I do have some site questions. And
Ask away.
Okay.
The team is here.
Let's see, Glenn, or do you have a photo? There was one of the entrance, it looked like. It was more of a close-up. Yeah, go back. Right there. This is just kind of an odd area. And have you looked at the opportunity to create more of an entrance that would direct people to the front door? Right now, it's basically asphalt, as you can see, that goes right up to the building and it turns to concrete. So the wayfinding is done through stripes, and it just feels that there could be, and I don't know the exact dimensions of the parking lot, but some way to better define, what's walkway, what's parking, whether it be with decorative paving or some cutouts for planters. So I don't know if that was looked at, because where the fixed glass is a large aproned area, but yet where the front door is, it's a small concrete apron. So it seems like there's an opportunity to develop something more interesting to create a sense of entrance into this area.
I may have our civil.
Jacob Glaze, I'm a civil engineer on the project representing Kimley Horn. Address is 765 The City Drive, Suite 200, Orange, California. Glenn, if you wouldn't mind going back to the actual site plan. So, so landscape plan is fine. So to answer your general question, so we are making, there's kind of a little, and it's going to be a little bit weird for me to explain it, but there is a little weird concrete layout how it is now. What we're doing is we're redoing the ADA in the front of the building. We're making it all code compliant, up to current code standards, as well as adding your truncated domes across the property frontage, kind of adding that entrance feel so that people, when they drive up or they walk through the area, they say, hey, this is where I'm entering the store, and kind of visualizing and making people walk to that general area. More of like a wayfinding, but on the actual pavement itself.
So it is a little bit hard to see from this site plan, but the area, I guess it would be south of the handicap parking, there's a large striped area, which means no parking.
Correct.
And then south of that, is that newly proposed concrete or is that existing?
South of that would be, it's going to be newly proposed concrete. We're doing a little bit of grading inside that area, making it all compliant with code. And so that's going to be newly proposed concrete inside of that area, and we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier.
Jacob, you can come up.
Oh, yeah.
And if you could point out on the screen the actual front door.
Of course, I'd be happy to. So let me see. So your front door is going to be generally right in this area right here. This is going to be so when the person drives in, they see this nice glass facade. They'll be able to drive in here. Of course, you don't want to have handicap parking or any type of parking here because it's a headache for everybody that's experienced that to back in and out of. The front door would be kind of in this area, so anybody coming from the parking lot would either come in on the sidewalk here, come in through the parking lot through these kind of ADA aisles that have been enlarged and are increased for that. And then the actual intent, and we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, is if we're going to go ahead and have an exterior cart corral, it would be sitting kind of in this area, whether it be inside or exterior. Let my partners answer that.
I guess I feel that there's an opportunity there because as it focuses on the main drive aisle and it is not the front door, to somehow remove some of that hardscape, develop a planter area or low planting or just something more decorative or some way to improve that. I believe you could still have the striping necessary for the handicap access, but I'm just wondering if it needs to be as large as what's shown on the site plan now, both try to minimize the striped area and the concrete area to create a more welcoming type entrance.
So I can answer that in twofold. So we did actually look at this originally with our internal landscape architect and as well as our team to talk about the striping. The one thing that we didn't really want to take away from is the big glass wall, kind of adding that architectural feel. So we thought if we went through and added a bunch of trees and planters to that area, it would actually be blocking that big glass wall. So we can definitely re-explore adding some type of landscaping or maybe a low shrub to that area, but we didn't want to take away from that kind of the history. Our architect of the house was talking about it earlier, so we didn't want to pull away from that, but there is definitely an opportunity to look at that. We'd be more than happy to revisit that as a team.
Because I don't believe there's any access there, so it looks like you could actually create a curbed area with just some lower accent landscaping. It's not going to block the window. The windows, really sometimes had back of house materials there, and then create more of a decorative paving area for the entrance itself.
Noted.
Any feedback on the landscape?
Well, my recommendations on the landscape would be that the existing tall palms be replaced with the city required Washingtonia foliifera palms, street palms. And I think there's an opportunity again on Indian Avenue. Right now, as you go down there, those palm trees are so tall, at eye level you really see nothing but a trunk. And I think with the vignettes or the arched areas, there's an opportunity to create more interest, on that side of the building at eye level, both at eye level and pedestrian level. They are proposing some Texas Ranger, it looks like, I believe, in that area. Yeah. And my concern with that is because the building's so tall, a lot of times that area is in shade, it gets the morning sun, but the Texas Ranger kind of gets gray and woody when it's shaded that long. And I just think there's an opportunity, both along the Palm Canyon frontage and the Indian frontage to create something more interesting. You have the low wall along the Palm Canyon frontage. And also at the entrance and exits on Palm Canyon, there's some existing trees and some islands there. And those could be enhanced to create a more interesting entrance into the site.
Madam Chair, I just want to clarify, as Mr. Malacher indicated earlier, the requirement that the city has for palm trees on Palm Canyon is in the public right-of-way on the curb side of the sidewalk. What's being shown here in the landscape plan are the on-site trees. And so we wouldn't require them to replace those trees.
Okay. What about along Palm Canyon on the cutouts that are in the sidewalk?
So, no, those are the street trees, and they don't need to replace those.
Oh, they don't need?
No, no.
So they're out of the right-of-way then?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Member Robert, comments or questions to the team?
Questions. I'm not sure who I'm addressing it to, but so what was the rationale behind taking out the storefront where the entrance is and putting in essentially just a pair of sliding doors that look kind of like a warehouse entrance?
Architect?
That's, again, Richard Burrow. That's the standard door entry package that is used by Grocery Outlet.
Okay.
Now along the top, are you kind of opposed to that just blank wall above that area?
I'll tell you what I'm opposed to. Number one, it has no relation to the fenestration of the adjacent storefront. In terms of height, it looks like it may be an 8-foot door, and the horizontal is like it's 7 feet or 6'8" or whatever, so there's no relationship across the building. And number two, it really looks like a warehouse entrance. And for something that faces onto Palm Canyon, even though it may be your standard, I think we would like more sense of an entry.
We could certainly look at that.
I work at Grocery Outlet. We are okay. Our standard is a 16-foot door, so as long as we maintain that and keep that, we are okay with aligning. I understand your concern in terms of design. We can align that, the glass that is right on the right-hand side, we can keep it on the left-hand side as well and just have the both keep being in harmony with each other.
And could you integrate it into the existing storefront system?
Yeah, we need to look on if there's any structural problems with that, but I don't think, because currently it is glass, so it should be okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other question I have is, well, a couple. In the bargain promo, which is along the inside of the storefront that you're maintaining, what exactly is that?
That's steel, and there's merchandising in there, so what we do, in order for it to, of course, not look bad on the outside, we put graphics on the glass. So on the right-hand side glass, the big one, you'll see graphics of our store, of the produce or any sorts of graphic that we use so that it covers the backside of the merchandising, so it doesn't look bad on the outside.
So it's not verbiage, it's more like images of a peach or a tomato or something.
We might have a red band of our verbiage just saying Grocery Outlet, but no, most of it will be graphics.
Okay. And then there is currently a disabled access, it looks like, for the next door tenant. And it's not really showing up on the site plan, and I just wanted to make sure that with your new plan that if that needs to be maintained, that it is maintained. And you can see a little bit of the railing in one of the photos.
Right there.
Right there.
So again, Jacob Glaze, Kimley Horn, it's not so that's originally right when I thought it was, right when we went down there. It's not disabled access, it's actually one of their fire exits.
Okay.
From there, but that is the intent, and I apologize, Tom, for not mentioning it earlier, that was the intent that we're keeping that, that concrete pad right up below there, so ultimately that will be maintained, yes, sir.
Okay. And then another question, in that same area where we have all the striping at the south part, if you do some sort of cart storage, or is that screened in some way, or is it just all open?
The typical cart corral that we do is metal piping. It's one of those easy assembled versions, so no, it's not screened.
Okay.
Seen it in most of the grocery stores or retail that it's the pipes, and I can bring it up an image and show you if you want how it looks like.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, Member Sean, question for the team.
Not sure I'm clear on the trash storage and the cart storage based upon what I've heard that may be a little different. couple times the way I heard it. So can someone clarify
So
that?
the cart, so the trash enclosure is an existing structure there that is there. It has a door. It's in good shape, so we're reusing that. It's immediately on the exterior. I wish I had a picture of it. Maybe I can bring it up.
What material is it, and what's the height of it? Metal gate? What about the wall that's facing?
Excuse me just a minute. Could we have you come up to the screen and just identify where the cart storage will be there on the plan?
Glenn has a microphone for you.
Thank you. So I'll show the trash enclosure first. This is it. And these are doors, the metal gates. And the cart crawl, our plan is to locate it here. Of course, we'll protect with a little curb or something of the glass storefront, and then there will be 2 or 1, depending on the size, on the actual parking lot as well, the cart storage.
Oh, okay. So trash storage, but just let's focus on that for one minute. So you're adding the ramp there on the east or the south side, I guess I'm looking at there, of that trash storage area?
That is the existing ramp for the building, and so they're not adding that. That is there currently in place, as is the trash storage location.
Okay, it says new ramp on their plan.
Excuse me?
It says new ramp on their plan.
No, it's the existing ramp. So
Okay.
Yeah, I believe
perhaps
so.
that's indicated incorrectly on your plan.
I believe so, yeah.
As you drive along the Indian Canyon frontage, I know I've seen trucks pulling in and out of there, so it is an existing ramp.
Sorry, then cart storage one more time.
This area, one for taking the cart, and
Yep.
then cart return is in the parking area. So if we go on the site plan, please.
Because your civil engineer just said it was either going to go outside or
Yeah.
inside in front of the
No, it's
glass window area.
Both is outside. So one is here on the outside area, somewhere around, so right after you exit the store on the left-hand side. So they take the cart, go inside, and then for returning, we probably locate it somewhere here, somewhere that is accessible from all over the parking.
Okay. Is there any other equipment that needs to go into the rear storage area that besides trash, like box crusher or anything like
We
that?
do have a box compressor. Can you go back, please, to the fixture plan? But we always bring them inside, so they're going to be on the back of house. Here it is, the baler.
The sign construction, can you tell me a little bit about what that looks like?
What?
It's the signage on the west side of the building?
Oh, yes. What about it? What's the question?
What's it made out of?
It's metal, and it lights. And metal box. It's a box.
Is the signage part of this?
No, the
No.
sign will be reviewed based upon the sign ordinance. There's no requirement for it to go before the AAC or Planning Commission.
Okay, but I think, Sean, if you can help us with the placement of it, as far as in composition with the facade, so we can give them some guidance.
Can you go to a photo of the banner you have there now? A photo. Yeah, there you go. I'm worried it's going to look like that.
So what's that? What's the question?
I said I'm a little worried that it might look a little too much like that.
No, definitely not. No, and I think in the drawing it shows it a little bit to the left, so it kind of is centered here. I guarantee you, it has nothing to do with that. Yeah, it's much more appealing.
But just based on the elevations here, it looks similar. And so I'm wondering if it really even needs that red background, or is that part of your corporate identity?
Yeah, it's part of our corporate. The red background is a part of the corporate.
Okie doke. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you.
Okay, Member Kenny, questions for the applicant team?
I think my question was addressed in that I just wanted to make sure that some consideration is given to the entryway, the window unit that is ultimately designed so that it blends in a little better. And I think I think we've established that that will be addressed. So I think I'd be curious to see what that ultimate solution is, but we'll decide later how we want to handle that.
Okay. Questions?
First of all, a question for staff, for Glenn. If they put graphics on that window to disguise the back of the shelving, is that signage?
Yes, and we would have to talk to Grocery Outlet. That's not a permitted sign, or we would include it as signage. How we usually handle that with retail is it could be opaque, it could be a solid color, but using graphics is not permitted in downtown.
As I look at the floor plan, I am concerned about the shelving that's against that window on the right, and also on the side elevation where there's a glass storefront wall, that they have wine racks against those windows. And it really looks bad when you can see the backside of those racks from outside of the building. Also, I noticed that they're required to have, let me see. I'm sorry. On the parking, 44 spaces are required and 64 spaces are provided. It's quite overparked compared to what our code allows, and I think if the parking numbers were more closer to just the requirement of 44, we could certainly get more landscaping and possibly even maybe eliminate the angled parking. I find when you're making people go one way through a parking lot, inevitably somebody's going the wrong way, and then it just gets everybody confused. And then I'm still a little confused on the Indian Avenue side. It looks to me, as I look at the existing photo, there is an existing loading dock that's at the end of that pull-in for a truck, but there is no ramp that I can see there, and it does on the plan say new ramp. Is there, from the design team, is there a new ramp that's being added back in there?
If it's existing, we'll keeping it. We use it for our on-grade.
I don't
So
see
it
it
is
in the
existing,
pictures.
but it's by mistake it's mentioned new.
And the other thing is that particular portion of the property is the most unsightly. There's metal above the loading dock, a metal veneer or metal panels of some sort, and it says on your elevations that the existing metal screen. Well, as you look at it in the photos, it's very damaged and dented and crooked. And then just below it to the right, you can see it looks like maybe chain link gates enclosing the trash bins or trash dumpsters. I think both that metal above the loading dock and the gates need to have a new treatment that makes them look more respectable, if you will. That's it, thank you.
So let's clarify a couple of things. On your site plan, where you say at the middle landscape outline where it says existing light pole typical, are you planning to keep the pole and replace the pole lighting, or are you planning, because there's a whole new detail on EP10 for a pole lighting?
Again, Jacob Glaze, Kimley Horn. All new lighting would be across the site. So there were previous light poles that were installed across the site, and a couple of them were either damaged, knockdowns, the copper wiring was stolen out of them. So in essence, to not have a parking field full of a bunch of spotlights that one looks like this, one looks like that, a bunch of Mickey Mouse for the term, everything will be one standard light pole that we'll use across the site.
Right. So there's a couple of things. They were, I think the Mickey Mouse that you're referring is that some of them are 8 foot high with the sort of dome.
There's a couple of those, but also I think you can see it kind of perfectly inside of this picture. So the landscape island on the right-hand side where there's currently a tree, there was a light pole base there previously. That light pole, to the lack of my better knowledge, there was an existing light pole there, which we saw, but in like all our aerial photography, but ultimately it's not there anymore. So either someone came and knocked it down or it was removed, or where it was, we don't really know. And so the intent would be to replace the parking lot lighting with one standard typical light system that would light the whole parking lot.
And was there any consideration to keep the aesthetic of the, I'm going to say the word again, mid-century modern globe lighting as a respect to what was there before?
I can probably let my architect to answer that a little bit better than me, but at least from our civil perspective, the globe lighting, although it looks really decorative and looks nice, it doesn't provide the foot candle requirements that we're really looking for.
And Madam Chair, if I can jump in, we also restrict the use of those types of fixtures now because of the light spillage, that they need to be downward directed.
Okay, and so therefore you also have exterior sconces that are also the shoebox. Are you planning to keep those, or are you planning to remove them completely with the colonial period wall sconces? See, they're on the same slide on the top where the red paint is?
You're talking more like the wall pack units that are up on the top. I think, honestly, I have to check my photometric plan, but I think those are all the lighting across the frontage is going to be replaced.
With?
1 second. I apologize for not having the answer to that. So there are no lights planned across the building frontage. It's all exterior site lighting.
Okay. I think we need your architect for this part of the question. So the color schemes, the color schemes that are being proposed, the red is really about the logo of the grocery outlet, but it's really the other two tones. The existing red brick has more of a cool sort of bluish tone. Why the warm color selection instead of a cool color selection?
Those were just some neutral colors that seem to be harmonious with the neighborhood, with the area.
With the neighborhood, you mean the art and design, architecture and design building to your...
And that is something that we could relook at those colors if you wanted those to be a little cooler colors.
And so the repaint scheme, for example, on that middle South Indian Canyon exterior elevation, you have this sort of the columns, the brick columns are painted in I mean not painted, they're the brick colors, and then the top is to show that sort of archway, but then it stops at the brick.
Correct.
And then a darker inset. Was that sort of the scheme?
Correct.
Okay. And the location of the signage on the Palm Canyon elevation, was that centered on the column?
Right now that's centered on the column.
Okay, and it's not sort of centered at the entry or?
No.
No. And was that on purpose to be off-centered?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have any consideration, because this is west-facing, that perhaps between 3 and 6 o'clock in August you might need some shading at the entry, or some consideration of the entrance treatment? Was that limited by budget, or is that something that this corporation doesn't really consider?
Well, really, we were just looking at the existing building. That's the way it is right now. And so we were keeping that basically the way it is.
So was there a
But-
financial restriction?
You know, we never really talked about that.
Okay. But you were going to go through the expenses of removing the storefront system and plastering to a new opening for the sliding door at the entrance.
Yes.
Do you know if for the lack of term, I'm going to call it sort of accordion metal screen door, security that's on the inside, would that be kept or would that be removed?
Yeah,
It would be
removed.
removed? Okay. So were you involved in the site design?
No.
Okay, so Jacob, can I have you come back up? Were there any consideration that you have about 20 parking spaces, perhaps putting the handicap spaces a little bit further apart and have a little more room for people to come in and out, and then the carts to be stored, sort of that whole frontage area to allow more room for people coming in and out? Was there any consideration for that?
To answer your question, so I think that's kind of a two-part question. We looked at putting the ADA stalls the closest to the actual building or closest to the front door. As far as actually providing additional space, whether it's removing a stall on the left-hand side or pushing over into where we're talking about the cart storage area to be possibly, there wasn't a real true consideration for that. But I mean, if that's something that the planning or that you guys would like to see, I think that's with ample parking. I think that's something we can definitely look at.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. At this point, Liz is. I'm excited that this site is going to be occupied. I think we're all thumbs up for that, and we're glad that you're here. And it's nice to have a store such as this in downtown. So, kudos on that. But this is the time we'll start discussing on your project. And so if you have any comments, we will open it up if we choose to. If not, then the discussion will continue just within this panel here. Okay. So I would like to start with Member Tom, since he had all his time.
All this time to make notes?
Yes.
I agree with you. It's an opportunity here to, it's a change of use and to enhance the site. I think the concerns I have is it's with the circulation and parking and the entry that I think there's some opportunities there to restudy the entry area and to better define it. In that whole corner where it meets the adjacent building, you know, there's a blank wall, there's the ramp, you can see it in that, I believe it's that center photo. I think that area needs to be studied and kind of blown up in detail. Another area that I see an opportunity, we really haven't talked about it much, is the north side of the building. There's a one-way drive aisle, and not knowing the width of the existing drive aisles, I think Member Jakeway brought up the concern that maybe there's some opportunities within the parking lot to improve that. There's a lot of asphalt. It comes right up to the building on the north side. I feel that there should be maybe a curbed area at the end of those handicap stalls. To somehow better, you know, direct it there. Does that one-way aisle need to be that large? Or if the parking lot circulation was restudied, are the aisles, existing aisles, wide enough to make them two-way? And that whole area could be eliminated or somehow reconfigured. It's just a confusing area with a lot of hardscape, and I think that north side of the building needs to be looked at in terms of site planning and design. And I believe there's opportunities for enhanced landscaping on both street frontages. They're just, you know, there's some opportunities to use the building as a backdrop and an architectural feature and have the landscape work better with it and create some interest at eye level. And I'd like to see that whole cart storage area, you know, with a screen where the carts are screened, and because that's basically your focus when you drive in off of Palm Canyon Drive. And I think that area needs to be restudied in proper detail.
Okay, Member Robert.
I'll echo your comment that it's great to have this potential store here. I think there's some missed opportunities in terms of creating a sense of entrance and presence that is seen from Palm Canyon. It looks like some of the decisions that were made from for the outside of the building were based on the layout of some of the displays. As an example, the entry doors, the new 16-foot wide sliders, they're off-center from the bay, and it looks like that's based on the dimensions of the bargain promos. So I think it'd be nice if they could do a little juggling to at least make the entrance to it look like an entry. I'd like to see if we can't maintain the storefront on both bays in some way and integrate the entry into it. I also, I'm not fond of the Don Quixote lanterns, but having those two empty bays or all the bays basically around the building empty kind of, I think something needs to be thought about in those areas as well. I would echo the comments about the parking lot and the circulation and potentially enhancing or expanding some of the landscaping in the parking lot. And I would agree that if you do cart storage in that bay outside of the glass, that it does need to be screened because that is the first thing that you will see when you drive in. So.
Okay, Member Sean.
Along the same lines of what other folks are saying here, and I'm going to start with the landscape items and the site items. I think that the recommendation to change the palms, and I know Tom was thinking that was a part of a city ordinance within the property. I still think it's a great idea for this site that the existing Mexican fan palms that we see really create this kind of ratty sense of this bare telephone pole that's consisting of this parking lot. Now, when I look at the landscape plan, not a lot has changed. There's existing trees. We don't really know what they are. They're just called existing, those tan ones. But primarily, it looks like existing palms, and we see from the photos that they're those taller, maybe nearing the end of their lifespan. A bunch of fence posts in the project there. So I like that recommendation, even though it's nothing to do with the city ordinance. So that would be my recommendation with landscape in regard to species with that item. Along the west side of the building, and I know that some folks are against doing nothing in front of those recessed stucco areas of the building. I feel like a lot of that can be solved with a restructuring of this parking lot and a re-examining of the landscape and how that's laid out in front of the building. I heard a couple things from the civil engineer about we will be looking at this and that, but didn't really seem to have it all thought out yet. One of my ideas is potentially no parking at all, just immediately west of the building itself, and to load that area up with landscape beds in front of, either directly in front of those recessed stucco walls, or maintain a sidewalk there and create those in that blacktop parking area just outside that yellow curb line currently, and relocate that handicap parking and additional spaces along the north side of the building, but along the north, maintaining a landscape bed also between the north facade of the building and the north parking. And I think that restructuring of the parking gets rid of the double aisle, the double drive circulation aisle, and moves that existing southern parking on the north further south towards the building. This way, I think this building, I've only known it as a Staples, nothing prior to that I can recall. But I don't know how much we can dress this up without some major surgery on this building. And so what I'd really like to do is achieve that through landscape and planting as much as possible. And I think that's doable, and maybe something worthy of working with a subcommittee on a little bit, and yet still bringing it back again. The signage, I feel like, is a little underdeveloped also. And I understand that it's a corporate identity and there may be some requirements for color and scale and such. However, I wonder if its placement wouldn't be better within those recessed areas on the west side of the building as well as the east. And the recessed area, I mean down below that sort of elongated arch. Rather than the way it's placed up there just kind of looks like an appendage and not really the home it feels like it wants to have, kind of confined within this framed area. So that's how I'm feeling about that. I'm going to agree with my colleagues here on the glazing. Seems like kind of another afterthought, or just, I don't know if it was a mistake or something that got left out. The recreation of the entry here with the glass doors and the elimination of the existing glass facade or storefront area around the existing entryway. And so I'd like to see that go back to glazing and a storefront system. I think this building has probably evidently been had a few modifications over the years that have gotten it to this point, and this seems like yet another one that could potentially be in the wrong direction, where at least currently those two bays on the southern bays on that west side there, they make some attempt to try to mimic each other in its language and scale, and I think we're getting away from that a little bit with the current entry proposed here. I'm a little worried about the floor plan inside the entry. Actually, let me just wrap up a site thing here. So along with that west parking along the west side of the building, down at the southern end, where I think you guys have talked about some cart storage, that's probably more of an overnight storage location, and throughout the business hours. It'd be interesting if that along the southern spaces there, furthest south on that west parking lot, but the 2 or 3 spaces furthest east, closer to the building, if that couldn't be modified, that parking area, and potentially some trees added there, that concrete, had some surgery on that, where we're really adding a fair amount of planting that could not only screen the building to the south, but also screen some of that, the cart storage area to the east, in between the building and the parking area. And with that, I'm done with that site stuff. The floor plan, what I was saying, scares me a bit. With the shelving on the interior, I find it hard to believe that that's not going to turn into signage or a potpourri of product within that window there, and extremely hard to control in terms of code enforcement and signage or lack of signage. And so, if that's possible, to rethink the bargain promo 4 sets of shelves there, I think that'd be nice to not have cart storage there and not have shelving for display of product and more signage. That's it.
Really? That's it?
I think so.
Thank you, Sean. Member Kenny.
Once again, to read through all of my notes at this point would be a little redundant, because I think I've checked off everything that I was going to say by listening to the previous comments, which I'll concur with every single one of. I'll just wrap it up with a couple of summary items that I think the front entrance really is. I think the word real opportunity and lost opportunity were used. I think the building is a bit blah as it has reached its current state. So perhaps reconfiguring the parking lot, eliminating the angled parking spaces so that you don't have to have that awkward drive lane down the north side of the building anymore would gain some space in front of the main entrance to allow for something that really says, hey, look, here's the entrance. Don't you really want to come in through this entrance and see what we have for you in here? And that's what's missing right now. And it's been missing even when it was a Staples. I remember walking in and feeling depressed, just parking and walking in the front entrance of that building. And this is all reminding me of why. So I think that is where we need to put the main focus, you know, short of every one of those arched openings on the outside of the building being filled with glass, like maybe I keep imagining one day it was back in the beginning in 1950. Thank you, Glenn. We've got to do what we can with what we have within a reasonable budget and get you guys in there and open, because I think that's the main thing we're all excited about is a grocery store downtown. Everybody's always been talking about it, and it's going to be great to have you there. So doing what we can to make it a welcoming place from the main entrance off of Palm Canyon, I think, is what we're trying to do. So I'd like to see it come back with some of the comments incorporated.
Thank you, Kenny. Member Tom.
I think on especially the Indian Avenue side and the north side where we've got those recessed arches, I think there's an opportunity possibly to put a metal trellis or something against the wall that we could espalier plants up onto so that those kind of dead arches get filled in with something to give it a little more character. I also think the colors are really old-fashioned. The brown and the beiges seem like what Palm Springs did 20 years ago, and I think to freshen this building up and give it a little more appeal, I would ask you to possibly think of working in grays or colors that respond a bit more to the Art and Architecture Museum that's next door and some of the buildings across the street that are right in this area are some of our true gems along Palm Canyon Drive. So I think if we can get this building to not stand out so much as something different but kind of relate to those buildings could be a really great addition to downtown. And I concur with everybody that there's some real missed opportunity to create a much more interesting entry, be it again with possibly a trellis that comes out, some more landscaping, wider bays between the parking so you can do something with enhanced paving or landscaping. You've got 20 more spaces than we would require, so I would suggest that you take the opportunity to possibly soften all this parking by the thoughts of reconfiguring to get rid of the angle parking, especially along the north side, I think make a lot of sense. So that's my comment.
Thank you. So you're getting 6 professionals' opinions on how to make this project much more pleasant to the experience that hopefully you will have 5, 10, 15 years from now. And we want to go and shop there. But we don't want to be thinking of, as we used to think about Staples, like, oh, that Heat Island place. I don't want to park. I don't want to go into that store. And that's the reason why they probably went out of business, outside from Amazon. But these are very good recommendations. And to be honest with you, I think that all these opinions that were given today are really doable issues in which the project will improve greatly. And I think we can do this with subcommittee and let them continue because we want them to be in business. So there are many suggestions in which you take all of them, and I think that the subcommittee will be able to review this and know that it's going in the right direction. We don't get a case like this where the recommendations are so specific.
Madam Chair, if I could just jump in here. We do have this item scheduled for Planning Commission here in the near future, so I would support the idea of a subcommittee so that we could get those issues addressed while we're in the process of getting this prepped for the Planning Commission. I just want to comment on modifications to the parking lot. Because they're not adding any square footage to the building, they're just re-tenanting. Our code does not require them to modify their parking lot. However, we would like to see some enhancements in the landscape islands that they currently have. So I just want to make it clear that we can't require them to reconfigure their parking lot. However, your other suggestions in terms of thinking of the entry sequence and how that's managed, I think would be appropriate. Just listening to your comments, I see a number of things that the subcommittee would consider. Number one is maintaining the existing storefront in both of those bays on the west side of the building and then centering the entry door within that bay itself. Secondly, to rethink the entry sequence that may involve moving some of the handicap spaces over and the treatment right there in front of the entryway itself. In terms of the cart storage, the subcommittee would need to look at the screening material for the wall in front of the cart storage, that it couldn't be just open metal railing, but it needs to be some type of an opaque wall in front of the cart storage. And then Mr. Lockyer's comments to also think of landscaping in front of that. Also looking at the site-wide landscaping, Member Dosey suggested that the Texas Ranger may not do as well along the east frontage of the building, and to just rethink those plant materials. So that's something that the subcommittee could look at, is that. And then also looking at the color scheme, we've had a couple of suggestions to use more cool tones and to look at the colors on adjacent buildings. So again, I think those are very specific and rather minor items that could be dealt with at a subcommittee level. And so I would encourage you in that direction.
Anything that our director needs to add?
I wouldn't limit the screening to structure. I don't think, I didn't hear anyone saying that. I know you added that at the end, but I think planted screening would be fine.
Okay.
I would also add that I think I liked the idea of landscaping the entire west facade, if possible, and the east. Didn't mind that idea either, with potentially some type of metal work of some kind and espalier plants.
So all that cost that you were going to use to do the new entry door, you can use it now on the middle for the facade improvement. Okay, so I think I need a motion.
I had one additional comment is we seem to be using the landscape plan as the site plan, yet the detail that's shown on the building floor plan is not transferred over to the landscape plan. So in other words, if we're going to use the landscape plan as the site plan, they should show the little pop-outs for the structure, you know, where the door is, or we need a detailed site plan more from a civil engineering or architectural point.
Or both.
I think what Tom is nicely trying to say is get your plans to be accurate and to show the information. So then we're not going back and forth with the architectural floor plan and then the landscape site plan. Okay, so Sean, I think I hear a motion.
We actually need a member of the AAC to make the motion.
Yeah, well, I'll make a motion to ask that one to come back to a subcommittee. Is that possible?
To approve, subject to a subcommittee review of the following items, which were the 6 items that I listed, and then the addition of a 7th item added by Mr. Dosey relative to landscaping along the west facade and decorative treatments within the archways, if possible.
Yes, and I believe Member Kenny wants to second that.
To push the button, I will second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Thanks, Flynn.
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Thank you.
We need a subcommittee.
I will volunteer.
Thank you, Sean. Member Tom Dozy?
Yes, I'll volunteer.
Thank you. Okay, we'd like to go to new business, item number 3, Garnett Properties, 2014. Application for construction of 2-story cannabis cultivation on Garnett Road. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair.
Madam Chair, I'm going to recuse myself from this
yes.
item.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
So,
See you in 2 weeks. Not fair.
This application was reviewed by the AAC back in April of 2018, and at that time, the project was recommended for approval to the Planning Commission with some minor changes. The Planning Commission reviewed the project on September 12th, 2018, and approved a conditional use permit and a mitigated negative declaration for the construction of a 63,650 square foot cannabis cultivation and dispensary. And it also included items such as manufacturing and testing and other cannabis operations. So the applicant has reviewed their operations and determined that they wanted to add a second floor to 3 of the 4 buildings. So the first floor will be 60,000 square feet, and the second floor 39,950 square feet for total cultivation or cannabis operations, which could be cultivation, it could be manufacturing, testing, is 99,950 square feet. Building number 4 remains at 1 story, and building number 4 is located at the off-ramp of the I-10, which is at the very right-hand side of the plan that's on the screen now. There will still be a dispensary, which is 3,650 square feet. That has not changed. So the total square footage will be 103,600 square feet. By increasing the square footage, this also has triggered an environmental review or an amendment to the CEQA document that was approved by the Planning Commission. Currently, that is being updated. An addendum is being produced to update that CEQA document. So I've also included the drawings of the project on the boards if you need them closer up. So this photograph here is a 3D image of the new buildings showing the two-story. So if you remember, the first story had these white pop-outs with eyebrows and glazing that demarks the entrances either into the building or include roll-up doors or entryways into the warehouse spaces themselves. The maximum height of the building, of the 2-story building, will be 30 feet to the top of the roof plate and then 36 feet to the top of the parapet. The 30-foot height limit is within the zoning code requirement in the M1 zone, and then the parapet is also permitted as a screening method of the rooftop equipment. So these are slides of all the buildings along the 4 sides. They're very similar. And then this slide is building number 4, the 1-story, which the AAC had previously reviewed. There's a material board that is being passed around. That material board is the same, it's consistent, and there's no changes to what the AAC had reviewed or the Planning Commission approved. So in your staff report, there are architectural review guidelines that you can use to make your stipulated findings, and staff feels that the project is consistent with the originally approval, and by adding a second story, it conforms to all code requirements. So that concludes my report, and the applicant is here.
Okay. Before we see Jim, is there any questions for staff? Yes, Member Robert.
Glenn, did I mishear you? What did you say the top of plate was? Did I hear you say it was 30 feet?
30 feet, right.
30 feet?
For 2 stories, yes.
So they have the low part of the roof, it's down at 30 feet. So is there no parapet at the low end of the slope?
I'll have to have the applicant.
Okay, thanks.
Member John, questions for staff?
Has there been any significant change to the landscape plan or layouts since we saw it last? And is there the security in terms of the walls and gating that is mentioned? Is there any change to the previous application?
1 second. So the number of parking spaces has not changed from the original. Actually, let me rephrase that. So there are 138 spaces required. They're providing 158. So the spaces overparked based upon the current use. If it were to change to another use, a warehouse use, they would still be in conformance. So then the layout with the two entrances, or the three entrances off of Garnett is not changed. The circulation is the same. The dumpster locations is the same. They're just adding the second story.
Okay, all right. Is the applicant present?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. James Chiaffi, architect. This project you see in front of you is virtually identical to the one you approved a few months back. We just raised everything up. The original building was 24 and 30. This is now 30 and 36. It still has the same parapet height around. In other words, there's about 1.5 feet or so, 2 feet of parapet at the low side, a little more parapet at the upper side. That's why the screen almost disappears when it hits the high part of the slope, because the screen is 5 or 6 feet high. Again, the only big change we made to the elevation, we embellished the archway in front of the dispensary, and then we did also increase the little canopies that we talked about before, made them a little more prominent, and talked about some signage. You can see some signage ideas there that similar to things we've done before. Colors are the same. The proportions are actually, I think, better. I like it better. It's not quite as squat as it was before. We kept the eyebrows the same height, just raised the walls up a little bit, and I think it looks a lot better, actually. The building 4 is a one-story building, but we did, in fact, raise it as well, so it ties in with everything, but it won't have a second floor in it. And that makes things more flexible down the road for that one as well. Just a clarification on that. I think we had some discussion about that with the staff, with Glenn, and that's how we rendered it, and that's how we're going to go with it. Happy to answer any questions. The fencing is the same. The landscaping's essentially the same. The signage, the monument sign, all that's identical. We just took everything, just went like that to enable more cannabis uses on a second level. The second level isn't the full size of the floor plate, again, because we designed the second level to match the parking that we had. So parts of the buildings will still have a 2-story volume in them, and those are things we work with when we finish them up. Sometimes we put that volume where the loading areas are so we can get a bigger vehicle in there or whatnot. That's how it works. That's why the second floor footage is not identical to the first floor footage. There's parts that are cut out, and that was parking mandated.
Okay, questions for the applicant, starting with Member John.
No questions at this time.
Okay, Member Robert.
Yeah, just to repeat, you said building 4, you're raising it also to 30 and 36?
Yep.
So that's different than what we have in our packet?
No, the renderings and elevations are correct.
Okay.
So to clarify, if you look at the...
It's still a one-story building. It's just a tall one-story building. Yeah.
Yeah, fine.
To clarify, there was discussions with Jim's staff about on the table that's on that site plan, it shows what second floor and what's first floor, and you'll see it doesn't show a second floor square footage on the fourth building.
Building 4, correct.
Yeah, but the elevation sheet, A5.4, which is building 4, the elevation, the heights are 22.6 to 29.6.
Right.
So that is being raised?
When I spoke to Jim's staff about the discrepancy between what they were telling me the building 4 square footage was, they said use the elevation from the previous application because it's for 1 story.
Okay. Okay.
And we're modifying that. The rendering is actually correct. The elevation was incorrect. I just wanted to bring that up today because we had that discussion. So we
Okay.
are going to raise it up.
All right, thank
I'm
you.
happy to give you a new elevation on that. I'm sorry, I thought that was done, but.
No, Brendan had sent me to
Okay.
use the.
Yep.
Member Sean, questions for the applicant?
Well, sure. Hi.
Hi, Sean.
Hi. The landscape plans, I'm not 100% clear. We're not reviewing the landscape, and we've already reviewed it, if I'm not mistaken, quite a bit, the landscape and the site plan.
Right, the landscape plan was not included in your application because there were no alterations.
I remember last time we talked, we actually took some landscaping out. It was over-landscaped. We talked a lot about that, and we felt that some of the landscaping was a little too fussy here and there. We wanted to make it stronger, and we relocated some landscaping on that drainage area in between
That's
the buildings.
what I thought.
It's
We had, yep.
yeah, that's
There-
the same.
So there was nothing to come back for that?
It's not before you today. It was
Yeah, well,
it's
that's
the
true.
building architecture.
Yep. Okay. That's
I'm
all
sorry, I should have just.
Yeah, that's okay. Mhm.
Hey, Member Kenny. Member Tom. No questions. Okay, I have one.
Thank you. Sure.
Okay. Jim, you have 20 extra spaces. Can't you just get rid of them? There used to be a time where our field, the planners, they used to be seen positively if we provide more spaces. Now with asphalt concrete and heat island effect, 20 spaces is a lot. And if you don't need to build them,
I would respectfully say that we want to leave them right now, because we don't know what's going to happen to Building 4. Building 4 down the road may have some loft space or office space in it. I think we better keep them.
okay.
Right now, it's not planned that way because we're maximizing the cannabis stuff, but we spoke about this about an hour ago, and I think we better keep it for now until we know more.
Okay.
Respectfully.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate that. I would agree with you, and I think your previous submittal was a tough one for you guys. You guys did a good job on that, but, you know.
Thank you, Jim.
Sure. Anything else?
No.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, is there a motion?
I'll move to approve as submitted.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, by Member Robert, by a half a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you very much. Okay, committee member comments today. We're winding down November, December, and then New Year.
I have maybe a committee member comment. Is this subcommittee member comment?
No, just
Oh.
any comment from the committee. Want to start with Member Sean? Kenny, can you wait? Yeah.
Just curious, so the Pinnacle project, and Glenn, while you're here, there was a resubmittal to subcommittee on that recently, last week, I think, and then it's going to Planning Commission this week?
It went to Planning Commission.
Last
and
week.
Planning Commission continued it to a date uncertain.
Oh, the Pinnacle project.
Pinnacle.
Right,
Oh,
for
yeah.
Lot 2. You reviewed, the one day that there was not a quorum, you reviewed all 3 lots and continued them. And then Lot 2 was a subcommittee to look at landscaping, walls, railings, and your basic comments were repeated by the Planning Commission.
Got it.
And staff has not received a revised submittal.
Okey doke. Thank you.
Okay, Member Kenny.
I had the good fortune of being in Las Vegas last week for a conference and toured the Neon Museum, which is a collection of retired signage from around town, and it it reminded me of my disappointment that our Palm Springs entrance sign went away. And what I thought about that I wanted to propose and suggest is that city staff look at the involving HSPB and AAC when decisions like that are made, that would be removing something that might be considered a historical artifact of the city, so that we can weigh in on how those items are handled. Because I think it was kind of a shame to lose it.
And having worked directly on that project, I have a lot of interesting stories to tell you about.
Oh, okay, I'll bet.
And I'm speaking about the Neon Museum.
Yeah.
That's right, he was director of planner there.
Right.
Any other committee member comments? No? Okay, director, your turn.
I have a number of items for you all. Let me start first. The Planning Commission recently appointed an ad hoc design subcommittee to work with applicants as kind of a pre-review process. In looking at the single-family submittal for Miralon, that took us quite a few meetings of both AAC and Planning Commission to get that through the process. And the thinking on the part of the Planning Commission is that by having a subcommittee that was composed of both Planning Commission and AAC members at the beginning of the process, that might help help applicants get through the process a little bit more quickly. And so what I'm asking from you today, Madam Chair, is if you could appoint 2 members to an ad hoc design subcommittee to work together with the Planning Commission on application items as they come forward. And so we'd primarily be looking to members of the committee who have architectural experience, I believe. Right, Doug? Yeah, okay.
So, Flynn, can you break that down a little bit in the sense of that, does the applicant officially submits a packet and then the ad hoc committee reviews it before it actually comes to AAC?
Correct. Before it actually comes to a public meeting, AAC and Planning Commission subcommittee members would review it together to give input to the applicant so that they can better finalize their drawings, if you will, for consideration by AAC and Planning Commission, with the idea that we're trying to shorten the number of times that you all have to review it.
And question number 2 is that you and the staff will determine which project needs that early review or not.
Correct.
Okay.
It wouldn't be for all projects, but certain ones. I think as we look at plans within an approved master plan community, for example, that's a key one. And some of our larger projects that we have coming through the process would most likely benefit from some type of subcommittee review at the beginning of the process.
Yes, question.
So would they be held, would the review be similar to how we handle a subcommittee review, or would it be done in person with the other members of the committee?
We have found that it's better to do that in person, sitting around a table with the drawings laid out in front of you.
And would that be, I assume that would not be a publicly noticed meeting, it wouldn't be a public meeting?
No, it typically would not be, because it's, again, before it goes to any type of a public meeting before the AAC or the Planning Commission.
And would the applicant be involved in that meeting? Or
yes,
no?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Their architect would need to be there.
Right, to take the feedback.
Exactly.
Okay, well, I think it's a great idea.
So, Flynn, do you think this is a 6-month term or?
What we might do is maybe look at appointing 2 members of the AAC for a 1-year period, and if we need to make replacements along the way because of other commitments, or some of you might be working on one of the projects that we have coming forward that we would need to maybe sub out one of the AAC members. So I think let's keep in mind that maybe this would occur for 1 year, and then we would need to make replacements as we look at individual projects, perhaps.
Okay. So Kenny and I are out. That leaves 4 of you. And before I point my finger, is there people who would like to volunteer for this? Okay, I see Member Robert and Member Tom.
Great. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. And again, we will let you know once we have a project coming forward and work with your schedules so that we can set those subcommittee meetings up. And again, it's just going to be on an as-needed basis. This is not a regular meeting by any means. Second thing I just wanted to inform you of is I'm not sure if you had followed the changes to our Plan Development District process. We went through a rather lengthy ad hoc committee process in looking at modifications to our Plan Development District ordinance. One of those recommendations was to look at the order of Architectural Advisory Committee relative to Planning Commission. One of the recommendations of the committee was actually to consider having AAC do architectural review after Planning Commission has approved the development standards for a project. The Planning Commission is going to just have an informal discussion of this on their agenda on Wednesday's meeting. I just wanted to make you aware that they're going to be discussing that, that they're not taking any action. We're not rewriting the code at this point. What we will probably do at some point in the future is have a joint study session of the Planning Commission and Architectural Advisory Committee to look at that process. But the Planning Commission just wanted to have some initial discussions on that first, so I just wanted to make you aware of that. Also, under the category of good news, we don't anticipating having a second AAC meeting this month because of the holiday. And so happy Thanksgiving to all of you. And we will see you on December the 3rd. And other than that, the only other thing is we do have 2 of our members leaving us, unfortunately, which does create vacancies on the Architectural Advisory Committee. We would encourage people to submit their applications if they would like to participate in the AAC. We need to have those interviews sometime either in December or the first part of January. So if you're interested in serving or you know anyone who's interested in serving on AAC, please have them submit their applications to the city clerk as quickly as possible. City Council is admonishing that we look for diverse applicants. And so if you know anyone who fits that category, please have them apply. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, very good. It's 4:34 and we're adjourned. Thank you.